Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Different by Design. I'm your host, Nick Treester, and today we are going to be talking about a video that I really didn't think I was going to be making, and that is, what is a Studebaker worth? Now, to be totally honest with you, this is probably not even a video that I would watch, as I know the answer to what is a Studebaker worth is a pretty complicated one, and it would be difficult to answer in one fell swoop. However, last year for the Studebaker Drivers Club in my area, I created a Facebook site to announce, events and that sort of thing. And I've ended up over the last year getting several direct messages, like from the general public or people out there that maybe have inherited a Studebaker or have some Studebaker parts, or maybe just want to know the value of their Studebaker. So I decided that I would just kind of throw this video together just to see if I could answer that question. What is a Studebaker worth? And just have a general conversation about the overall economics around buying and selling classic cars, especially Studebakers, because this is actually a niche area and, it does take a little bit of expertise, but the information is readily available to anyone that can go online and search for these types of values. Okay, so here it is. As of January of 2023, the average price of a Studebaker is $28,956. See, I already gave you the price. You don't even have to watch the rest of the video. Okay. It is actually a little more complicated than that. And no, you aren't going to be able to just list your vehicle for that price and some guy like this show up to your residence and he hands you a wad of cash for your old Studebaker. But after going through this process and doing a little research myself, I actually found out it's not as nuanced as you would think. And it's pretty simple to actually get a pretty good evaluation on a price of this type of classic car. One could even say that I learned something from going through this process. And I think some of the more experienced Studebaker owners might learn something too. The whole purpose of this video is to provide some basic information that a novice could follow to help them evaluate what their Studebaker is worth. As I feel like if they're able to access more accurate information, they're more likely to keep those Studebakers in circulation and in service, which benefits the Studebaker community as a whole. I also want to make a video that's, a little bit more in depth enough that a expert Studebaker owner could also chime in. So I'm very curious to see the comment section of this video, as I'm just a dude on the internet spitting advice about classic car evaluations. So please do go down to the comment section and see what festivities are taking place, and make sure to chime in on anything that I may or may not have included in the video, because there's a lot to consider and it might be helpful to somebody else. Okay, so let's just jump right in. The first topic is really who Studebaker was building and manufacturing and therefore marketing these vehicles to as an original equipment manufacturer or OEM when they were still around. Before they got out of the car business. And I think that this helps or adds a little bit of context. Studebaker was manufacturing most of their vehicles out of South Bend, Indiana. That's where the majority of cars were built. They shipped them all over the world, but you can really find a lot of examples in their home market of the United States. In the home market of the United States, they really were going after the middle-class American. That's who these cars were designed for, and that's really who bought these cars. Especially during the post-war years, that's who was purchasing these vehicles. And they had dealers all across these different regions that would sell that to them. Now, they weren't they didn't have as large a volume as maybe a Ford or a Chevrolet, but Studebakers were pretty large volumes across the board. And so the reason I bring that up is that provides a little bit of context. Sometimes I see people that maybe inherit or have or know about a Studebaker and they're trying to evaluate it, think that it's maybe a really, really rare object or something that, only a few people got, especially because Studebaker had such advanced technology and styling compared to many of their competitors, especially in their home market. And so, no, you don't have a garage find Ferrari Dino sitting on your hands. You have a middle-class American vehicle, and so it kind of should be priced accordingly. Now, Studebaker did build some models that were very exclusive. I would consider the Avanti as a very exclusive sports car. So there's a exception to every rule that I'm providing in here. So just understand that I'm trying to speak towards the majority of what the people out in the public might have their hands on. So the next natural question, of course, is who is buying these cars in the modern day? And I want this video to be applicable both in 2023, but also 10 years down the line. I hope that people will click on this video in 2045 and be able to get some more understanding out of maybe what their car is worth. But let's talk about who would want to buy this car in the current modern era. Because most people on the streets are not typically interested in either buying a classic car or even going deeper into that niche of, hey, let's buy a classic Studebaker. It takes a certain type of individual, and it's important to understand that it takes a certain type of individual that wants to purchase this vehicle, and that is your market when you're trying to sell one of these cars. So let's talk about the average Studebaker owner. There's a lot of different people out there that might be interested in this type of car. And the different things that they're interested in is, of course, number one, the history of it. Studebakers have an extremely rich history that goes along with their cars. I'm a young person, and I could easily get involved with car culture, but it could be any car that I desire. I could buy a modern sports car, but that's not as enticing because that car doesn't come with the history that a Studebaker comes with. Studebaker was producing cars / vehicles for more than 100 years. They produced wagons in the 1800s and then progressed into automobiles. So there's a very rich American history that goes into every single Studebaker that's out there. It's pretty neat, and it's something that people try to promote. A lot of Studebaker owners maybe have past experience with the brand, maybe a father figure or a paternal figure had a Studebaker. Maybe it was their grandparents that had a Studebaker, somebody that really got them into the brand. And then typically what happens is they get interested in the brand, and then they can never get away because the Studebaker life is so interesting. It takes a little bit of a spark, but typically that past experience is really kind of a rich thing that helps envelop people into this type of culture. Then there's, of course, the gearhead that stumbles into Studebakers. I met those type of people at car shows and that sort of thing. They just like cars. They start looking for old cars, and maybe they come across Studebaker, they buy one, and then they're hooked because owning a Studebaker is so interesting. Then there's, of course, people like my dad who inherited a Studebaker from somebody that they had in the family and thought it was a neat piece of history, that sort of thing. So there's all these different and unique experiences that people bring to the table when they own Studebakers. And that's something to note, is that Studebakers are very unique. It's something that somebody can take to a car show, and there'll typically be no one else like it at the car show. We've all seen all the Chevrolet Corvettes and the Ford Mustangs. Those are everywhere at car shows, but a Studebaker is unique and different. It's almost like a conversation piece. People want to come up and talk to you about it. Hey, what's that? What is that car? And they're interested in it because they've never seen one before. So there's a lot of different moving aspects and reasons why somebody would want to own a Studebaker. They're also styled incredibly and impeccably. Many of their designers back in the day were of European descent. Raymond Loewy was a French industrial designer. And then, of course, there's Brooks Stevens, who redesigned several of their models. But their styling is very unique, and it's very distinctive. And that's another reason why people love Studebakers, is they just had impeccable style, and they're beautiful to look at. And a lot of that style is very timeless. It's still something artful and beautiful to look at, even in today's modern times. Okay, enough gushing about Studebakers. I can do that all day long. The reason people clicked on this video is for valuations of Studebakers. So let me get on with that subject. Most evaluations and reference material you're going to find is going to be online. So the first reference material that I'm going to use is Hemmings.com. And I think most automotive enthusiasts have heard of Hemmings or know about Hemmings, or maybe even seen it before. But it's basically a monthly periodical. They do a lot more than that. They're a pretty large organization, but they also have classifieds where they sell and market classic cars. And people can list their vehicles for sale there. And Hemmings does a great service to the classic car enthusiast by providing evaluations based on their previous listings on their website. So you can find that at Hemmings.com, and you can research your specific vehicle by year, make, and model, and then see kind of a range of different valuations. So something to note about Hemmings is they're getting all this information from the asking price. So if you have an outlier, somebody that's out there that's kind of crazy about what they think their car is worth, that's going to come up as the highest asking price. And it could kind of skew your data or your perception of what this vehicle is worth. So take that with a grain of salt and understand that when you're looking at this type of information, you're really kind of what you're doing with that data is just looking at a range to make sure that you're in the ballpark. So another thing to note about Hemmings is that they list vehicles for sale, and I would encourage you to go and look at their listings as there's beautiful cars for sale, just like this Wagoneer that you can check out. Man, I kind of want to buy that one. Maybe I should do that. Never mind. Okay, back to my video. So Hemmings has these listings for sale, and that can also give you a ballpark or give you an idea and let you kind of research what your car or vehicle might be worth. However, what I did notice is most of the vehicles that are for sale on Hemmings are running and driving, and that's a pretty big distinction. You know, you have to pay for your ad to be listed on Hemmings, so you're probably not going to be doing that for, you know, your scattered project car or your car that's, you know, rusted out and doesn't run or drive. You're probably going to be putting that on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. That's where most of those cars end up, it seems like. The Hemmings is more for the cars that run and drive. You might send a carrier to get that vehicle transferred across the U.S. or across the world. So for those that maybe don't have a running or driving vehicle, or they've got a car that has some issues that affect the value of it, Hemmings actually provides a service for $99 you can pay to have your car evaluated. And you fill out this form. I'm sure it gets spit into a computer or evaluated by somebody at Hemmings. And off you go with your little evaluation. But unless you have just $100 sitting around, most people probably aren't going to do that. They would rely on somebody like us, Studebaker enthusiasts, to try and help guide them through what that car would be worth. And what I would say about that is, hey, if you have an extra $100 sitting around, you can send it to me and I'll tell you what your car's worth. Okay, so the next more accurate evaluation is through NADA, which NADA stands for National Automobile Dealers Association. And NADA sends out reports on classic cars. So they do evaluations too, and they provide that to dealers. I wasn't able to access their information publicly by going to the primary source of NADA, but I was able to find NADA through the insurance, the American Collectors Insurance Company. And they're online, so you can search. You can either search American Collectors Insurance in Google, or you can search for NADA Collector Car Values, and this American Collectors Insurance website will show up. Then you can go to Community, and then you can drop down there to Classic Car Values, and you can break it down by year, make, and model, and see the value of your vehicle. And this is probably a more accurate way to see the valuation, and that's publicly available. And it's free to look at that. Okay, so this next one is carguide.com. It's CAAR guide.com. The website is probably like the least visually appealing to look at. So you log on there and it's got kind of an older school website, but that's fine. Once you get onto the website and start looking up the car values, it's pretty confusing unless you look at their guide. So they've actually got a guide that breaks down the condition of the vehicle. And this is a huge point that I wanted to drive home. In fact, if I was making this video from scratch, I would describe in detail some of the different levels of how a classic car can be evaluated, right? You have different levels of functionality and if it runs or drives and if it's in restorable condition, that sort of thing. That's what I would have put in my video, but their guide pretty much goes over all of that anyways. It's convenient to look at that, and they break it down in a pretty simplistic form. However, if you were just to go on their website without looking at that guide first, you would be pretty confused and not know what these different numbers mean. So let's talk about that for a second. Okay, so their grading scale goes basically from a 1 to 10, and there's a 10 plus. There's also one that's an S. So the S is a salvageable rate, which may be not in running condition, but physically salvageable, with many good parts in good condition, but fairly rough physically. Basically, you have something here to work with that's more valuable than scrap metal, or a model that possesses some rare qualities, possibly a parts car. Number 2, you have a restoration project, good solid vehicle, great potential. Either a total cosmetic restoration or a major mechanical repair may be needed. A vehicle that requires some work to make it a driver or show car, but not a hopeless case. Then you have number 4, which is a driver, a complete auto in need of minor cosmetic or mechanical repairs, very presentable, but may still need a fair amount of detail work to progress to a show-worthy car. A driver is a car that's very presentable and runs very well, but may lack certain authentic original details or may possess minor flaws, causing it to fall short of being a show-quality car. Then you have number 6, which is very good. Good original auto or restoration. Most restored show condition vehicles will fall into this category. Then you exceed to 8, which is excellent. You have a show winner, a near flawless auto, or a rare vehicle in great condition needing very little. Also, an exceptionally original vehicle with low miles could also be an exceptional clone or recreation. And then you have 10, which is like exemplary or extremely rare. I'm not sure how many of these would fall in this category, but we expect that few autos will ever place into this category. Extraordinary ground up restoration, flawless paint, excellent running condition, very rare, extremely rare, matching numbers, provenance, very original auto with amazingly low miles, documented rare color or like spec options. And these are some of the possible qualities that a vehicle in this category may possess. So most Studebakers are going to fall into one of these ranges. And that's kind of how you're going to determine how to place a value on your car. So honestly, I feel like with this model, the average person could take a look at their vehicle pretty quickly and determine, which kind of level they have. If there's questions, it's probably going to be one of the lower levels, whether it's, like a salvageable vehicle, or if it's a driver, maybe it runs and drives on its own. Or is something that could be a project. I think the average person using these descriptors could probably come to some sort of agreement as to which number to place on that. And once you have that number, you can take that and place it into their model. So their model really breaks it out by the number that you apply. So what you do is you put in the year, the make, and the model. And then you add that number that we all came to a conclusion about, and you can correlate that and see where your car value lines up. And that gives you a pretty accurate number. I used an example from a vehicle that I bought, and I applied a 4 to the car that I had. And then I went into their table, and it showed this number here. And I paid about $5,000 for this particular car with what I think is a number 4. And so I feel like this is a pretty accurate, give or take, rendition of what you would find out in the marketplace. So my number was $5,000. Their number was $5,100. The interesting thing about this is this website has a proprietary market value system. And there's not much explanation on here of how they come to this value. So I don't really have much of an explanation of how they do this. But from what I can see, this seems to be kind of the most accurate, especially when we're talking about Studebakers, as Studebakers can come really in a wide variety of conditions and functionality out there. So I feel like that's an important aspect of all this. So I did give a couple of different options for finding the valuation of your classic car. So hopefully I've been able to point people in the right direction. I don't think I covered all the bases. Classic car evaluations are a pretty complex topic as is. I want to keep this at a 3,000 or 30,000 foot level looking down. We don't have to get in the weeds of every single type of evaluation or process or that sort of thing. But I did want to open this up. Make sure to comment down in the section if you know of a different way or know of a different method we could easily create a follow-up video with some of the conversation that goes on. And it's kind of an interesting topic. I actually had a lot of fun making this video. It's not something that I would have foreseen, but I actually learned something. So hopefully I was able to share that and people can put this information to use out there in the general public. So that's it for today, and hopefully you found this useful.